We're back. Peace and love to everybody out there. Welcome back for another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and I'm glad to share some hope, some healing, some love, some light, and some just overall good vibrations with you to help to increase the good vibes on the planet, to make a difference in your life, and to authentically express from my beingness. All those things I feel are very important. And so we are here every Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and again, sharing things that will help support you in your life journey, things that will be perhaps spiritually insightful for you, that will support you in your process of going through this thing called life, where we're all doing the best that we know how in any given moment. And the reality of the matter is that all of us are going through a journey. Some of us are more consciously aware than others. And I just remembered once again that I forgot to put on my mic. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. Somebody please comment in the chat your ability in the comments how clearly you can hear me, because I definitely forgot to clip on my microphone, which is sitting right here. And I know from previous experience that it makes a lot of scratching noises when I put it on once we're already going. Greetings, bro. Good to see you here. Greetings, Rev. Good to have you today. And so, like I said earlier, we're here each week sharing some love and sharing some light, offering healing for anybody who is interested or who's in need. If you do have any pain in your body, temple, or anything from a health standpoint that's going on with you, please put it in the comments. Let us know. We'll be happy to address it right during the live. We've done that on a number of occasions where people have experienced relief right during the live broadcast. Doesn't have to make intellectual sense to you how it's possible. I can't explain to you intellectually how I'm able to sit in my office in Tampa, Florida, and you're able to see this and hear me talking wherever you are in the world on YouTube or on Facebook. But it works. It works as a function of technology that's been designed, and that technology mimics really the technology of the divine designer, God. And so through God is how it's possible ultimately. So our focus point for today, our focus point for today is that love is all there is. Love is all there is. And I I uh, I believe that there is truth in that, although it may not seem that way. What my life is about is seeking to be the purest embodiment of love that I possibly can. I'm thankful for many teachers that I've had along the way. It's through my grandfather that I and my brother Damien, who's here today, learned about the value of cooking with love, or as he would say, love. He would stretch it out. Shout out to my ancestor, John A. Hall. And, if I order pizza, the name I'm giving on the order is love, because I believe anything worth doing is worth doing in love, including ordering the pizza. Um, and really do believe, I'm absolutely convinced that love is what it's all about. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, that's all fine and good, but to say that love is all there is, that might be a little bit of a stretch. I look at my life and I've had situations where I experienced something that was very different from love, you might say. I look at the world and I see all this hatred and crime and bigotry, all of this animosity, all of this pain, all of this struggling, all of these things that don't at all look to me like love. I look at my own history and abuse that I've experienced, and that wasn't love that was happening in that moment. So, on what basis, Royce, do you have of saying that love is all there is? It sounds nice as a spiritual platitude, but when it comes to the practicality of it, how can I really fully embrace what it is that you're professing right now? And let me say to you that yes, I too have experienced hardship and pain and suffering. I too have experienced something that feels very different than love, as we all have. That is part of the process of living as a human being on planet Earth. That is part of what we experience on the journey. And I don't want to discount by any degree anyone's experience in life because I know that it can be tough. I know it can be difficult. I know it can be very unpleasant. Okay. And I know that there are many people who have experienced some really horrendous stuff, right? I'm not discounting that. I'm not discounting that. I'm not discounting your journey or the pain that you've experienced on your journey, nor my own for that matter. But I still hold true to my statement that love is all there is. That love is all there is. Every day since Christmas of this past year, I wear this pendant. Comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and it says, love never fails. Love never fails. Um, I've been divorced twice. You who's watching this, you've experienced some things where you might have experienced heartache and heartbreak. You may have had people who told you that they loved you, but what you experienced with them was maybe not quite what felt so loving to you. How can we say that love never fails when it seems very clear that it frequently does? How can we say that love never fails when people that we love and we've done our best to love on still end up screwing up royally, making poor decisions and throwing their life down the toilet? How can we say that love never fails? How can we say that love is all there is? Well, let's get into that a little bit, shall we? Greetings, Faith. Good to have you here today. Peace and love to you, my sister. Let's get into this. A little while ago, several months ago, it might have been last year, on a live, um, I made a statement that everything that God made is good, and that if God didn't make it, if it's bad, then it doesn't exist. If God didn't make it, it doesn't exist. Okay. If you look in, from a biblical perspective, you look in Genesis and it's laying out this story of creation, if you will. And everything it says that God made, God beheld what God had made and said, it is good. Okay. And so everything that God made is good. It's only real if God made it. If God didn't make it, it isn't real. It isn't real. It may seem real, but it's not real. And so all the stuff that's bad, all the stuff that's bad, as real as it seems, as real as it feels, if it's bad, then it doesn't actually exist because God didn't make it. All right. Now, there's some stuff about that. You look over in the New Testament in the scripture, it says, count it all joy. In everything, give thanks. Not for everything, but in everything, give thanks. There was something really profound that, as scripture tells the story in the book of Genesis, that God said to Adam. As the story goes, there's this paradise, this Eden, in which we were placed, humans were placed. Adam and Eve found themselves in this paradise, if you will. And in this paradise, this beautiful garden, there are all kinds of things, all kinds of beautiful things. And God said, you can feel free to eat of anything in this garden, but of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, don't eat of that. For the day you eat of that, you'll surely die. Hmm. And that's getting to what I'm about to touch on today. Everything that God made is good. Eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good is just fine. You'll be just fine eating from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good. It's when you get into that polarity. ah, and you think that something could possibly be in contradiction to the goodness of which God made. And then all of the ways that we get caught up in that. And when we begin to feed upon that, when we get this idea that there's something that it could exist that extends beyond the goodness of God, that's where we get ourselves in trouble. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. Yes, there's chaos that we experience in this world living on planet Earth. There's hatred, there's fear, which, by the way, nice little acronym for false evidence appearing real. That crap isn't real either, but it sure does feel real. Analogy I use sometimes is you can see something in a dark area on the ground, maybe near some bushes, and feel immediately startled, seeing what appears to be a snake there. You will feel an immediate, significant increase in adrenaline and cortisol, stress hormones in the body. Your heart rate will immediately increase significantly. You will experience a lot of changes emotionally and physiologically upon seeing what appears to be that snake, feeling the danger that that snake can and will cause you damage, cause you harm. But then you get a little closer, you see a little bit more clearly. You see a little bit more clearly, and in your clear vision, you notice, oh, it's not a snake at all. It's a garden hose or it's a stick. And so you see that the thing that you had feared wasn't actually real. It wasn't what you thought it was. You were seeing something that appeared real. It was real for you that that was a snake. You responded as if that was a snake, but it wasn't actually a snake. It wasn't anything that could actually do you any harm. But that's how we experience it. And we experience a lot of stuff in life that way, don't we? Don't we? And so, you know, I get to serve in the capacity of a healer. It's a beautiful gift that I am deeply humbled and grateful for, that I get to be used in that capacity to demonstrate God as a healer. Okay. Technically, it's a healing modality. You know, there's stuff that I understand, uh, that has to do with, the workings of the physical body, but ultimately this work, uh, they're referred to as transcending the matrix. Ultimately, it's a embodiment of spiritual truth, and it's really about really a spiritual journey that all of us are either consciously or unconsciously aware of. And it's such a blessing for me to be able to participate in that. And what I see over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is various forms of sickness and disease, areas where we are out of balance in one way or another, and they come from areas of blockages, really, where something is blocked within us. Something is blocked within us from something that we have seen, heard, thought, experienced, or that somebody in our ancestry maybe even thought or experienced. And there's a bunch of other deep stuff that I'm not going to get into right now because I don't want to confuse anybody. But things were designed to flow. We were designed to flow in love. But sometimes things happen and we get an interpretation of what happens. And from that, we get this thing that in therapy folks call baggage, right? In psychology circles, it's referred to as baggage. And we all have it. We've all accumulated some baggage along the way. How is it that we as human beings come to experience baggage? We come to experience baggage because something happened in someone's life where there ended up being a blockage created in them. What is that blockage dealing with? The blockage is ultimately blocking the free flow of love. The free flow of love. God is love. That's the essence of God, and that's scriptural. God is love. And we are created in the image and the likeness of God. We're made of the same stuff that God is made of. And when we stop being the fullness of who we are, then we end up running into the problems that we have, whether they're emotional problems, relationship problems, physical health problems, or any other thing that ends up being something less than the perfection of that which we were designed to be and express, right? So let me put it this way. There are people in your life who've loved you, and in the process of experiencing their love, you've taken on some baggage, perhaps, just as I have, because the people who were loving you or who were supposed to love you or who were telling you that they loved you, they also brought you something that didn't feel so loving. And so you go through life and you end up meeting other people in your life and you end up developing trauma bonds based on traumatic experiences that you've undergone in your life, and perhaps there were micro traumas that you had experienced in your life where you were getting mixed signals of you were having love that was sent to you, but there was other stuff that was mixed in with the love. There was other stuff that was mixed in with the love, and it's like you're drinking water, but the water has ink dropped in it. And so every time you drink water, you think that water is supposed to be mixed with ink, that water, which is sustaining of life, that for you to be able to have water, there's got to have poison mixed in with it, toxicity mixed in with it that's going to actually cause you damage, and it's going to slowly destroy you, slowly eat away at you, stain you, scar you, right? And so we end up having these experiences where we've experienced that. We've learned as a coping mechanism that this is what love looks like. We end up in toxic relationships, unhealthy relationships, because we learned from our own socialization, our own life experiences, that that's what love looks like. When that's not what love looks like. That's what love mixed with something else looks like. Now, here we come back again. So if love is mixed with something else, how can you say that love is all there is? Here we go. Good question. I'm glad you asked it. The awareness of love gets mixed in with a perception or an experience of a lack of love. It's something that's going on within our beingness, within our consciousness, within our perception, within our understanding. Hey, Paul Danette, peace and love to you. Hope that you're doing well. And so There's a movie, wonderful movie, brilliant movie. I saw it some time ago. Uh, it's an animated film called Spirited Away. I highly recommend it. This is a spoiler alert, however. There was in this film, Spirited Away, there was this point where there was this, we'll say this dark spirit, this dirty spirit, the spirit that was causing all of these problems, right? Causing it had a very foul stench. It was greedy. It was narcissistic. It thought that the whole world depended on it. Its focus was on its own gratification and not concerned for what happened with others. And it was causing a lot of problems. Maybe you have some people in your life who've been that way or that you've experienced that way, maybe directly part of your life or that you've experienced on a larger scale. Maybe even you've to some degree been that person. No judgment. Let's just not stay there, right? Okay. And so they ended up this dark being who was all of these so-called negative things ended up actually being purified. All of that stuff ended up being washed off of it, right? And it became this beautiful thing. Guess what? It was always that beautiful thing. It was just covered and mixed with something that was not true. And like you and your life experience, it had been impacting with people with this other stuff. And if we were to think of, if we were to think of a love cloud, I know sometimes cloud is something that we think of as gloomy, but let's not think of it in that context. Well, let's think about being rained upon with love. Let's put it that way. All right. And so you perhaps have had people in your life who love maybe your parents, grandparents, lover, people that you've encountered who loved you to a degree. Okay. They loved you, but maybe they were also angry towards you, maybe also possibly jealous of you, maybe fearful of something that you brought that they didn't understand, right? And so they did their best to love you. And here's the thing about love. How much you've been loved, that doesn't say as much about you as it does the capacity of who you've interacted with, their capacity to love. Okay? People can only love you to the degree that they have a capacity to do so. But that's more a statement about them than it is about you. Okay? You are worthy of love. You are worthy of pure, unconditional love and the love that God has for you. The love that this pendant is talking about. It's not based on conditions. It's not based on how good you are. It's not based on you doing all the right things. You're loved just because you exist. You're loved just because you exist. And so many of us have experienced something very different from that. We've experienced trauma and pain and abuse and all of these other things that don't feel very loving. And what it is really ultimately that the people with whom we've interacted had some blockages. Those blockages showed up as darkness because love and light, I put the two hand in hand to a large extent, you know. And sometimes I'll speak of the light of love. Love illuminates. Love transforms. I don't know if Reverend Shahir is still here or not. Pastor, senior minister of Transforming Love Community, because love transforms, love heals. The work that I do as a healer, love is what's bringing the healing about. Now, God is the healer. I'm a vessel of the healing, but love is the tool that makes the healing possible. Guess what, folks? There are folk who have done their best to love you who just lack tools. Don't let that be a statement about you and your worth or your value or how lovable you are or how valuable you are or how precious you are, right? The fact of the matter is that sometimes people love on us to the degree which they're able, but they don't necessarily have all the right tools. The key is that you develop the tools that you've been given. Seek ways that you can bring more tools add more tools to your toolbox, that you can love more freely and more purely. And link up with those rather than getting too distraught by those who aren't able to love you in the way that you need to be loved. Link up with others who have tools, the tools to do so. Because believe me, there are people that do have those tools. There are people who are looking to hone and refine those tools to become the purest vessel of love that they can possibly be, and dealing with their own baggage, unpacking their own baggage, spiritually bathing, so to speak, so that all that other stuff is cleared off. And so, using that analogy of love raining on us, raining down on us, yeah, there have been people in our lives who they did their best to love on us the best that they knew based on their own stuff, right? And sometimes because of blockages that were going on within them, there was some mud mixed, there was some dirt mixed in with that. And so instead of just raining love on you, they rained mud on you, right? Because there was that love mixed with something else, what appeared to be what came across as something else. There were blockages, there were limitations on the love. The love wasn't in its purest form. Okay? The love wasn't in its purest form. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. There was a situation. Albert Einstein was brilliant. No doubt about it. Certainly scientifically brilliant, but he was also a very spiritual person. And he talked about how darkness doesn't really actually exist. How can you say that darkness doesn't exist when at nighttime it's not so bright? How can you say that darkness doesn't exist when there's shadows that we experience all the time? Key word there. Darkness is not a thing unto itself. Darkness is just the absence of light. Darkness is just the absence of light. That's all it is. If you want to get rid of the darkness, you don't have to get mad at it. You don't have to curse it. A long time ago, when we had this ministry, Free People Center for Truth, Love, and Wisdom, it delivered a message about the purpose of human life. And I said then, I hope I can recall the way that I worded it then, that the purpose of human life is to descend into the presence of darkness and reveal the authority of God's light or something. I'm not saying it exactly right. But what it was ultimately dealing with is to go into the places where it seems like there's darkness. And that's what we do as humans living on earth. We have these experiences of darkness, and we're challenged to, in these different experiences, to cultivate the light within us so that we might see clearly. Jesus spoke about this in terms of how we see things and how we perceive things. And he said, if your eye is single, if your eye isn't mixed in with other things, if there's another scripture that says that a double minded person is unstable in all their ways. We talk about being singularly focused versus wavering and being thrown off of the truth of what really is. And the truth is this: there's no place that God isn't. Heaven is where God is, and there's no place that God isn't. And this is why Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's very near and present. This is why when he was instructing the disciples about healing and said, go out and heal the sick among them and tell them the kingdom of God is at hand. It's right here. And yet we find ourselves going through hell. We find ourselves going through hell because we're seeing something other than what's real. We're seeing something other than the love. We're maybe even focusing on the stuff that we're the blockage of the love rather than the love itself. The blockage is really in our own vision, in our own perception, and in the perceptions of the other people that we interact with. And so he said, if your eye is single, if your eye is whole, if you're only seeing things as they actually are, beyond all of the illusion or the Maya, Sanskrit term, which means that things are not as they seem, if you're able to see beyond that, your whole body will be filled with what? With light. And there'll be no darkness. There'll be no darkness. We want to cuss people out because we're not seeing the light. We're not seeing the light in us, so we can't see it in them. Here's the thing, folks. There are people who are going through hell. There are people who have challenges that we don't know anything about. There are people who are feeling pain. They're feeling rejection. They're feeling inadequate. They're feeling unworthy. And it shows in how they interact with you, perhaps. What's our job as spiritual beings? Our job as spiritual beings is to know that in spite of how people are seeing us and treating us, knowing that we are the light and not hiding that light because somebody is afraid of it or doesn't understand it. We maybe establish some healthy boundaries in terms of the degree to which we let them get close to us, perhaps, yes. But also that we see the light so fully in ourselves, that we see God so fully that we're able to see God within ourselves, and that we're able to see ourselves so fully and so clearly that we're able to fill our whole beingness with light. And our whole beingness being filled with light, we're able to see other people clearly. We're able to see beyond their illusions. Able to see beyond their attitude, beyond their baggage, beyond their issues. And we're able to see through all of that stuff that's covering the truth of who they really are. And we're able to see the light and the love in them. And see that so clearly that they see a vision of themselves through us. And that light begins to come forth and appear more fully. I started saying as a healer a long time ago, in terms of the healing work, I don't deal with sick people. I don't deal with sick people. I just encounter people that I need to remember their wellness and see their wellness, their wholeness beyond the illusion of their sickness and dis-ease, confusion, whatever their ailment might be, right? You know, God told me a long, long time ago that I was going to be taught how to heal people. And that happened. I'm very grateful for that. One of the biggest blessings of my life. And yet, the one who receives the most healing is me, because my vision is clarified. My spiritual vision is clarified. I'm able to see beyond my own delusions. And I'm learning more and more that love really is all there is, even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. Even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. The way I end up coming into the knowledge I came into regarding healing, somebody I was dating was borrowing my laptop and it stopped working while she had it. I wasn't thrilled about that. I need to go to my mother's house, use her computer to print out some materials for that ministry I was referring to earlier, Free People Center for Truth, Love, and Wisdom, when we're first getting started 20 something years ago. And I ended up having to, right by where she lived, there was this Office Max where I went to print the materials. There's a guy named Paul there. Hey, Reverend Shirley, good to see you, and peace and love to you, my sister. And everything that this guy pulled out, he offered to show me stuff that they'd done for other people in an attempt to get me to patronize them, even more. And, everything that he pulled out was on this Chinese doctor. I was blessed to study Chinese energetic medicine under this man. It changed my life. It changed my whole perception of sickness and dis-ease and so much more. And then other things unfolded where I was able to learn about the DNA and how stuff is passed down intergenerationally and about genes and stuff like that and reprogramming the DNA. And then received prophetic word, a time would come where I would, either decide to either continue doing the healing work my own or teach other people to do the stuff I was doing. Ultimately, I decided to go the latter route. Started doing healing treatments on myself instead of getting rid of tumor or sickness or disease or physical pain or whatever, which I had a lot of wonderful experiences supporting people that were dealing with those things all across the globe. I started doing treatments on myself to develop and teach a healing methodology or modality. And that's how Transcending the Matrix was born. And there were things that I was led to do to include in the methodology, by God, that I didn't know exactly why I was doing that. And then it came later. There are things I'm still learning now. There are things I'm still learning about it now. And when I say to you that love is all there is, beloved, honestly, I don't know if you believe me or not. I'm still trying to figure it. I'm still figuring it out myself, quite frankly. I'm still learning it myself, quite frankly. And, what I want to say to you is the people in your life that aren't doing right by you, do your best to forgive them. They're not doing right by you because they're not doing right by themselves. Anybody who's doing harm and doing damage to another, this is the reality, folks. We are all one. We really are. We really are. And this is the place I stand in this healing work now as a spiritual being in service on the planet. The way that I'm able to sit in my home in Florida and somebody's able to experience healing in another part of the globe is because in reality we're all one. And by God's grace, I'm blessed to see beyond the illusion, able to work through whatever these various illusions are, called people's baggage, this matrix of illusion, if you will. And in the process, my eye becomes single and my body becomes filled with light. And because we are one, the darkness that the person that I'm doing the healing work with that shows up as sickness or dis-ease the presence of the light enters into that area within them. And the natural outcome of that is that healing is made manifest. And love is what drives that. I stand by this statement that love is all there is. Love is all there is. But if we see something other than love, if we see something other than what is real, then we end up getting into trouble. We become double-minded. Our eye becomes no longer single, no longer whole. It becomes fragmented. Our vision becomes askewed. And as scripture says, right now we're seeing through a glass dimly. The way that I paint that is like this matrix of illusion of all these vertical and horizontal lines that like imprison us in a box that we've been programmed into. And it isn't that somebody else has programmed us into this box. It's programming that we have taken on. So we can't blame other people for our stuff. Do other people have an impact on the baggage that you carry? Yes. Yes. Is it appropriate for you to establish some healthy boundaries? Absolutely it is. But here's the thing, boundary isn't something that you create for somebody else. Boundary is something that you create for yourself. It's not that if you do this, then I'm going to punish you with this. No, that's not what it is. What it is that you're saying, I am a being of love and light, and as such, this is how I choose to be treated. And if I'm in environments that don't understand, recognize, or honor that, then the decision that I make for myself is that I'll remove myself from those environments. Right? Does this make sense? Yes, yes, or yes. Yeah. And so, hey, folks, I want to tell you today that independent of what anybody has ever said to you or what anybody's ever communicated to you, that you are worthy of love. We're here to give and to receive love, to experience love, even in the midst of a lot of things that don't seem very loving. Sometimes we may need to love people from a distance, those who their own stuff is hindering the ability of love to flow freely in them. Sometimes we need to do that. And yes, believe it or not, although it seems like the world is full of a lot of stuff that isn't love, there are those with a pure heart. There are those who, and still in process, there are those with a pure heart who are working diligently to let love flow more freely and more powerfully and more unhindered in them. Link up with those folks. Iron sharpens iron, is said. And when those who are beaming with light try to share their light with those who can't comprehend it, can't really appreciate it, Jesus talked about don't cast your pearls before swine. Is it because the pigs are bad? It's not a judgment on the pigs, but they're just not going to be able to appreciate the value of a pearl. And so it's a waste of that value. It's a waste of that value. Give them something that they can take and use and do something with, and that will actually add some value to them. Give it to them in the way that they can receive it. But there are people who can receive your light, shining brilliantly, shining brightly. Link up with those folks. Link up with those folks. And when you do, there's going to be more light. They're going to not only appreciate and value your light, but the truth of the matter is, when your light meets their light, it'll be more than 1 + 1. It'll be magnified exponentially. And that brings blessing. That brings blessing. It brings blessing to you, brings blessing to them, brings blessing to the earth. And in some way, it actually helps all of us to be able to see the love and see the light and feel those things more clearly and more purely. All right. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. How you all doing out there today? You're very welcome, Reverend Shirley. You're very welcome. I want to hear from you all. What's going on in your worlds? Anything that you want to share that was key takeaway? Sam Raj, greetings, my brother. God bless you too. Thank you for the birthday well wishes for my mom. That's coming up this Friday. It's a milestone birthday for her. Yes. Love and many blessings to all of us. And hey, listen, I want to touch back on that concept that love never fails. How can we say that love never fails? Because God never fails, and God is love. And so, in the end, love always wins. And if love hasn't won, then it just ain't the end. Now that doesn't mean there's some things that we need to end. there's some areas where we need to maybe cut some ties, and that kind of deals with the boundaries I was talking about earlier. But this love that I'm talking about, it's not the love that's based on conditions. This is a love that is patient and that is kind, that doesn't envy, that isn't proud, that doesn't boast, that doesn't seek its own way, that isn't, you know, mixed with all that other negativity, that doesn't delight in evil, that rejoices in the truth, that isn't easily ticked off. Ah, and that somehow always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always endures, rejoices in the truth. All of these different things that are maybe a bit rare in today's world, right? But we're talking about a love that isn't based on any of the conditions that we set up. That's how I seek to operate. And that is how I'm learning more and more and more that God feels about me and how God feels about you too. God bless you, everybody. I love you. And let us have ears to hear that which is uplifting, insightful, healing, that offers us hope and encouragement. The truth of the matter is, we're powerful beings. And the stuff that we think about, the stuff that we focus on, energy follows consciousness. The stuff that you're thinking about, the stuff that you're focusing on, that multiplies. Whatever it is, it multiplies. It has a way of showing up in your life. And that's why scripture says, hey, the stuff that's honorable and pure and lovely, all of the good things, think on that stuff. Anything that you can celebrate and you can give praise about, think on those things. Let those be the things that you're focusing on. Let those be the things, the places where you're putting your attention. All right. Let that be how you're spending your, I was going to say spending your spiritual currency, but let me put it this way. Let those be the things that you invest your attention in, rather than wasting on things that are ultimately not going to be fruitful at all. So that pretty much wraps us up for today. as we continue to work our way towards finding ourselves in that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. God bless you. As always, I'm sending out a whole bunch of peace and love.